Welcome to Front Office Pros. Today, we're going to be talking about our top 5 fantasy football players that terrify us to draft. We are heading into the biggest draft weekend of the year, and so we want to prepare you as we talk about 5 players that really got us concerned. So, Joe, why don't you talk about the first guy? There's a guy here that, based on their auction price, we're terrified to draft.
Yeah, first guy we're going to go with is wide receiver Tyreek Hill of the Miami Dolphins. He's currently listed at $31 for his average auction value price. And honestly, before the oblique injury and everything, and after they trade Jonnu Smith, Tyreek Hill was a guy that I was looking to target and thinking he was going to bounce back. I mean, with Jonnu Smith no longer being there, figured that just opened up the targets for Tyreek Hill. Maybe they get back to that deep passing game and not so much that short dink and dunk that would between De'Von Achane and Jonnu Smith that happened last year. Then, Achane's even banged up right now as well. But, Tyreek Hill just with it given his age and just this Miami Dolphins team and offense just it is so tough because there's just not a lot of positivity going around here. And then you got Tyreek Hill and his age and just is he regressing because of the age? Is he finally going to hit that cliff and just, not be relevant this year? Or is there that small chance that he does kind of return to the Tyreek Hill in fantasy? And those are kind of the reasons that I'm terrified to draft him.
He is definitely one of the biggest risk-reward players out there because if you do decide to draft him and he is back to the Tyreek Hill that we know, this guy could have been a first or second round pick all day long in snake drafts, and you're talking about a guy who's going, 50 plus. Well, we can't really rely on him because of what happened last year. So it's one of those things where it's like, I think a lot of people could be targeting him because they see a lot of value with him, but I'm with you. I think that there's a lot of red flags, and not to mention, I mean, I know this is a little bit, off the radar here, but I think it's something to consider. You're hearing more and more about players chirping about really a disrespect, honestly, towards Mike McDaniel. If this season gets away from them, you have to look at how the season ended with Tyreek Hill. He basically said, I don't want to play for Miami again. I'm out of here. I forgot. I think he did something on social media. And even when Tua came out and talked about it in the comments, he's like, yeah, this isn't just something we smooth over. We have to build a relationship back.
Yeah.
So his relationship with the team is already getting a little sour. This kind of feels like not to the extent of like an Antonio Brown situation where he completely fell off the rails. But it seems like we're getting to that. It could get to that point where Hill, gets mad. He's not getting the ball or does something stupid, and the team suspends him. I just see something like that because I think this Dolphins team is gonna have a rough go of it.
Yeah, I really do too. I mean, their defense is going to be, not going to be good. So just again, just nothing really positive about this Miami team, and it's just to the point of, honestly, if I'm going to draft anyone a part of this Miami offense, I'd rather just take the shot at Jalen Waddle, and maybe if he's able to stay healthy, that he ends up kind of having a breakout year this year.
Well, and honestly, that's why Waddle's a guy that I've been targeting. Honestly, I mean, yes, we're talking about how this Miami offense is bad, but he's $10 as an auction price. And yes, you're right, Joe. I think the defense is going to be bad, but that could allow for more opportunities in offense. They're going to be so down, they're just going to be chucking the ball. So I think they actually could do quite well. But my thing is, I'd rather spend way less and go with the upside pick of Jalen Waddle, who we know is going to be a part of that team. Whereas Hill, it's like, I'm not so sure.
Yeah, yeah. People want the value, and you're going to have to pay for the name value.
That's right. So the second guy we're going to be talking about here is, and trust me, we Joe and I aren't hating on the Dolphins here. This is just what we're thinking. It's going to be running back De'Von Achane of the Miami Dolphins. Look, he's got that calf strain right now, and everything that they're saying is, oh, he's going to be ready by week 1. Maybe I'm wrong, but this sounds like a huge smokescreen. I completely expect that Ollie Gordon is going to be the starting running back week 1. I don't think Achane is going to be there. they need him for the long haul. If they even have any hope to even doing anything this season, I would think they're going to want to use him. So a calf string, that's the type of thing that needs to get healed properly. I mean, I'm no doctor, but everything that they talk about, right? This is something that can nag and can really hamper the season. And for a guy who's explosive like Achane, that's not something you want to mess around with. I mean, Christian McCaffrey dealt with that calf. And, we've seen, this is not, I understand this is the NFL, not the NBA, but you've even seen NBA players who've had calf strains and they kind of kept playing on it. And you saw a ton of Achilles tears. It's really no joke. So to me, it's like, if he's already dealing with that, that to me is very concerning. And you're talking about paying a whopping price, Joe, of $46 for him. It's a lot to pay for a guy who, if he gets injured, is just going to be sitting on your injured reserve.
Yeah, that is way more money than I'd want to pay for him given this risk. And, just as you mentioned last year, who was also had that calf tendonitis and also was supposedly going to be ready to play week 1? Yeah, that was Christian McCaffrey last year. So, and he wasn't ready to play and missed
No.
most of the season. So, and a lot of times those calf strains are precursors to the Achilles, kind of like you went over there. So De'Von Achane at that price is just a guy I'm actually avoiding, and I completely agree with you in the fact that it is shaping up, given Jalen Wright's injury as well, for Ollie Gordon to be the week 1 starting running back for the Miami Dolphins, and a guy that people should be looking to take at the end of their drafts here.
Well, I honestly just taking a peek. De'Von Achane, interestingly enough, went for 44 in our actual real auction draft. So he went right around that price.
Right.
So, for the league that you and I are in, we're not
Nobody, they
bothered.
weren't fearing him. Yeah.
No, not at all. Now, mind you, speaking of Christian McCaffrey, which we are not talking about him, we are concerned about him. If you want to check it out, go check out our other episode where we say do not pay for these players, right? But McCaffrey went for 45, which was a lot different because his price here is 53, which means not a lot different. It's almost $10, but anyways, let's go to that third player, Joe. Who's that third guy?
Yeah, third guy we're going to go with is wide receiver Garrett Wilson of the New York Jets. And I know this is a guy that you had targeted last year, Steve. You're excited about him with Aaron Rodgers, but this year just feels different. And I feel like people are either in on Garrett Wilson and don't fear the Justin Fields situation, or they're kind of like me and more so do fear that Justin Fields situation and whether or not Fields can actually, give him enough targets and volume to really be, wide receiver 1 here. His current value is going for $22 as his average auction value. So curious, where do you stand with Garrett Wilson?
Well, I'm with you. I think he's a trap, honestly. I think there's a lot of people. At first, I started thinking to myself, man, that target share is just going to be off the charts, probably over 30%. So part of me just was attracted by that alone. But even when I was doing my projections for him, even with that high target volume, it didn't matter because it feels isn't going to be throwing that many attempts. I mean, this is off the top of my noggin, so I could be wrong, but I want to say that Fields, I don't know if he's ever averaged over 30 attempts a game. I want to say that for the season, I want to say he's roughly around 24 or 28 passing attempts. I want to say that's right. So I don't think he's going to have a lot of volume. There's no real weapons around him. It's just really Garrett Wilson. Who else is there really that they have? They cut Malik Nabers just recently.
Yeah, Mason is the only guy that really comes to mind.
Yeah, and I think he's sneaky, actually, for a guy who he might be able to rely on him, as a safety blanket, But other than that, I think, teams could double team Garrett Wilson, and that Jets offense could sputter out of control.
Yeah, I mean, Josh Reynolds is shaping up to be their wide receiver 2 right now, and he's not scaring anybody.
No, he's not. He's not. And I think that's the thing where it's like, you think he could be good, Joe, but I don't know. I don't see it. I just don't think that he's going to materialize the way that people think he's going to.
Yeah, that's where I agree. I mean, we've seen him be productive in seen him be productive even in bad quarterback play, but just wonder, like you said, how many times are they really going to let Justin Fields throw a game? Think they're going to rely on, Breece Hall, Braylon Allen, heck, maybe even Davis as well, their third running back. And like you said, maybe he's throwing anywhere from like 24, 25 times a game there.
Yeah, I mean, I got him averaging. I just wanted to check. I got him averaging about 25 pass attempts a game. But even with the high target volume, I mean, just to get this perspective, right? I have Josh Reynolds getting 46 targets on the year. 46, okay? I have Garrett Wilson getting 128. So he's getting way more. But even then, you're looking at Justin Fields as not the most accurate quarterback. So you're talking about this is not going to be high completion percentage. So the reception rate is going to be probably lower. So I have him getting 84 catches for 907 yards and 6 touchdowns because I don't think there's a lot of touchdowns. So if that's the case, that's a disappointing season. Who cares that he got 30% target volume? It's not going to materialize for you. I think it's a trap.
Yeah, I think it could be a trap too. At first, I was kind of excited, former Ohio State teammates, kind of reuniting there. Is Fields going to be able to do it? I mean, but we've only really seen it 1 year for Fields to support a guy, and that was DJ Moore that 1 year. But other than that, we just haven't really seen Justin Fields to be able to really support a wide receiver that highly for you.
All right, so the next guy we're going to be talking about here is wide receiver A.J. Brown of the Philadelphia Eagles, a guy who hasn't really seen a lot of the practice field due to the fact that he's had a hamstring injury. And you got A.J. Brown going for $42 right now, which is a hefty price to pay. When you got a guy like Drake London going for 40, Joe, that seems crazy that Drake London is going below A.J. Brown. I want to say I'm looking at the wrong cheat sheet, but I'm looking at the right cheat sheet here.
Yeah, that is crazy to me. I would, at this point, much rather have Drake London with no injury concerns than have A.J. Brown, who battled hamstring injuries last year, and now he's nursing similar hamstring issues again here, and been missing training camp. And the soft tissue injuries and missing training camp to me is just never a good sign.
No, I mean, like you said, he only played 13 games last year. Prior to that, 17 games and 17 games. It makes you wonder, are things starting to catch up with A.J. Brown a little bit with his durability?
That could be. I mean, he was also, he was a guy that did sometimes, I feel like typically the last few years, he misses a couple of games on the season. But now that seems to be just happening more and more. And as the guy continues to get older, like that starts to pop in your head if he can continue to really keep up his fantasy production there.
That's another one where it's like, why not get Devonta Smith for $10? I mean, nobody wants Devonta Smith. No offense, Devonta, but no one's like, I don't think people are like, I really want Devonta Smith coming out of the draft. Maybe last year I felt like people were like really, hyping him up because they thought with Kellen Moore as the OC that they were going to put him in the slot, yada, yada, yada. I almost bought into it. Good thing that people liked him more than I did, and so I didn't get him. And then that worked out in my favor because I actually did think he was going to be in for a big year, and he wasn't.
Yeah, no, like you said, Devonta Smith just for me just never seems to be that exciting of a player to take, but sometimes the value's there. I did snag him in a snake draft the other night as my wide receiver too, just because he was the better of the wide receivers left on the board there.
There you go.
All right, so our last player that we're going to talk about here is going to be wide receiver Malik Nabers of the New York Giants. And right now, his price is currently sitting at $51. He's a guy that continually seems to be nursing a toe injury that he also was affecting him last year. And then also a couple weeks ago, popped up that he's also dealing with a back injury as well. So the combination of the two has kept Nabers off of the practice field. A guy that I thought was going to, we talked about it in the past, was going to be a safe wide receiver option, and kind of was excited to see the deep down the field targets with a guy like Russell Wilson being able to throw those moon balls down the field. We've seen glimpses of Wilson being able to do that in the preseason, not to Nabers, of course, but other guys. But just makes you think, like, imagine if that is Malik Nabers. then these injuries popped up. He's missing practice time. So I'm concerned to, spend 50 plus on him, who's already kind of dealing with these injuries and once again missing practice. And does that hamper him in the season as well?
Like you said, dealing with a back injury, dealing with a toe injury. He's dealing with a new quarterback now, hasn't been able to gain that familiarity with Russell Wilson as a starting quarterback. I mean, you did see a lot of training camp videos where early on that he just was like catching, multiple balls. So look, again, it's your risk tolerance here. If you want to take him, I'm not going to say go for it. To me, I would hate to spend $51, right? We talked about $51 for Malik Nabers. And then he all of a sudden gets injured. Or, I mean, you and I both think the Giants are going to be the worst team in this division. I mean, maybe the Cowboys, maybe. But, I mean, Philadelphia is the previous Super Bowl champions. They're solid. Washington, unless Jay Daniels takes a huge step back, they're going to be solid. So then it's like, okay, who's three? Probably Dallas, I would think, and then the Giants. So, let's say that Nabers is hampered by all these injuries. The season starts to get off the rails. Why wouldn't they say, okay, Nabers, just sit. We don't need you to get hurt. What do we have to play for? So I don't know. I don't want to risk my season on because that's what happens. A lot of times, the most expensive guy you paid for or the guy you draft in the first round, and it's a whiff, that's usually what makes or breaks your season. It's hard to come back from that.
Yeah, just because, I mean, especially in auctions, I mean, if you spend up on a guy, it's hard to really get solid depth if you go that studs and duds approach. So if your stud does in fact go down, oftentimes it is hard to replace them. And obviously you're not going to be able to pick somebody up to return that value. I mean, there's a reason why you got to pick up for a guy like that. But I did think it was interesting. So in our auction draft that we were in, over the weekend, Malik Nabers went for exactly $51 in our actual auction league. So hit the AAV right on the money. And ironically enough, the same team also took AJ Brown, but got him at $28 versus the 42.
Which is a huge difference with the AJ Brown. This goes to show. So Nabers is a big name, so I think more than likely. But again, I think it's a trap. I think people see like, oh, who else is on the team? They got Wan'Dale Robinson. Basically, that's about it. So you would think that he's just going to be this target monster, which he will be. But it's like, how many attempts a game is Russell Wilson going to be throwing the ball here?
I don't think a lot because unlike the Cowboys, the Giants have a good defense. And if they're able to run the ball, I mean, obviously, I think Daboll's going to want to run the ball and not have Russell Wilson being thrown it 30 plus times. I think it's probably somewhere between, 25 to 28 passes per game for Russell Wilson.
Yeah, I think that sounds about right. So that does it for this episode. We went through our top 5 fantasy football players that terrify us to draft. These are guys who, based off their auction price, could make or break your season. It all depends on your risk tolerance. But for Joe and I, we are out. We like to go and, go for safer players, right? These guys, there's players around them that could be just as good. These are players that have been labeled as league winners, possibly. So everyone's going to have their different flavor here. So maybe on a different channel, they're going to be saying that you should go for these guys. But for us, we're telling you to steer clear. If you haven't done so already, check out our most recent episode. We talked about some bounce back players that we think you get at a discount. You might want to check that out. Thank you so much for tuning in, and until next time.